He crossed the Alps with elephants and nearly destroyed Rome. But the real story of Hannibal is far more complex than you think. Here are 15 facts about Hannibal Barca. Hannibal Barca was one of the most brilliant military commanders in history. Born in Carthage, he grew up during a time of conflict with Rome. From a young age, he was exposed to war, strategy, and leadership. Historians suggest that his early experiences shaped his ambition and his long-lasting rivalry with Rome. Over time, Hannibal would lead one of the most daring campaigns ever recorded, challenging the most powerful republic of his era. Now, let's begin our countdown of 15 legendary facts. Hannibal Barca was born in 247 BCE in the city of Carthage, located in North Africa. This was a city built on trade, but defined by its rivalry with Rome. He was the son of Hamilcar Barca, a respected military commander whose very name, Barca, meant lightning in the Punic language. From a young age, Hannibal was not raised in a villa, but in military camps. He was exposed to the harsh realities of command before he could even read. At just 9 years old, his father led him to a sacred altar. There, Hannibal placed his hand on the sacrifice and swore a solemn oath to never be a friend to Rome. His upbringing was a unique blend of Greek scholarship and brutal military training. He became a master of both philosophy and the blade. Historians generally believe this upbringing played the key role in shaping his future ambitions. Hamilcar didn't just raise a son, he forged a weapon. According to ancient sources, the 9-year-old Hannibal Barca stood before a sacrificial altar and swore an oath that would change the course of history. While the exact details are debated, this story appears in multiple historical accounts. Polybius claims the boy swore never to be a friend to Rome, a pledge of independence. Livy, however, paints it as a promise of eternal hatred. To the ancients, an oath was more than words. It was a religious contract. By touching the sacrificial victim, Hannibal was binding his very soul to the destruction of Roman hegemony. Hamilcar Barca, the architect of this vendetta, was systematically grooming his son to be the instrument of Carthaginian resurgence. The oath was the final step. Historians often interpret this moment as symbolic of his lifelong rivalry. Whether it was literal truth or powerful propaganda, the oath became the defining legend of Rome's greatest nightmare. Whether forged in blood or in the fires of memory, the oath at age 9 became the guiding principle of Hannibal's life. He didn't just fight Rome, he was born to oppose it. In 221 BCE, the Carthaginian commander Hasdrubal the Fair was assassinated. In an instant, the destiny of the Mediterranean shifted to the shoulders of a 26-year-old general, Hannibal Barca. Proclaimed commander-in-chief by his battle-hardened troops, Hannibal immediately abandoned diplomacy for total military consolidation. He was finishing what his father had started. By 219 BCE, Hannibal stood before the walls of Saguntum, a Roman ally deep within his territory. To Hannibal, this wasn't just a city, it was a strategic threat that had to be neutralized. For 8 months, the Saguntines resisted with suicidal bravery. When the walls finally crumbled, the city became a funeral pyre. The fall of Saguntum was the point of no return. Rome issued a final ultimatum: surrender Hannibal or face war. The Carthaginian response was simple. They chose war, igniting the greatest conflict of the ancient world. Hannibal didn't just inherit a command, he ignited a firestorm. The Second Punic War had begun, and the world would never be the same. Hannibal was now the leading actor on the stage of history. In 218 BCE, Hannibal Barca performed one of the most audacious maneuvers in military history. To strike at the heart of Rome, he led an army of 50,000 men through the frozen, trackless passes of the Alps. Historical accounts describe a nightmare of extreme weather and lethal terrain. Hidden ice and frequent rock slides claimed thousands of lives, but Hannibal pushed forward, driven by an iron will. But what made this campaign truly remarkable were the 37 war elephants. These African giants were never meant for the freezing heights, yet they served as a terrifying deterrent against mountain tribes. By the time he descended into Italy, Hannibal had lost half his army, but he had achieved total strategic surprise, bypassing Rome's defenses and changing the face of warfare forever. Historians widely consider this one of the boldest moves ever recorded. Hannibal didn't just cross mountains, he crossed the boundary of what was thought possible, establishing himself as a tactical legend. In 216 BCE, Rome decided to settle the war with one massive blow. They raised the largest army in their history, 80,000 men, to hunt down Hannibal on the plains of Cannae. Outnumbered nearly 2-1, Hannibal didn't retreat. He set a trap. He placed his weakest troops in the center, forming a thin, outward curving line, tempting the Romans to charge. As the Romans surged forward, the center gave way, drawing them deep into a pocket. Then, at the perfect moment, the trap slammed shut. Hannibal's elite infantry and cavalry closed in from all sides. The Roman legions were caught in a closed room of slaughter. By the day's end, nearly 50,000 Romans lay dead. It remains the most catastrophic defeat in the history of the Republic. Cannae was more than a victory. It was a tactical masterclass. Over 2,000 years later, Hannibal's double envelopment is still studied by every major military academy in the world. In the wake of his greatest triumph at Cannae, the road to Rome lay open. Yet, despite being the master of Italy, Hannibal Barca never entered the gates of the Eternal City. His cavalry commander, Hannibal, famously urged him to march at once, warning, "You know how to win a victory, Hannibal. You do not know how to use one." But the general hesitated. Logistics were his greatest enemy. Hannibal lacked a siege train, the massive towers and battering rams needed to breach Rome's formidable walls. He was an army without a base, living off the land. Strategically, his goal was to dismantle Rome's alliance, not just destroy its capital. He expected the city to surrender once its allies defected. But the Roman Republic refused to break. This hesitation allowed Rome to regroup. Hannibal stood at the gates of history, but the keys to the city remained forever out of his reach, a choice that continues to haunt military history. Following his triumph at Cannae, Hannibal Barca remained in Italy for 15 long years. This was no longer a war of lightning strikes, but a grueling campaign of endurance, logistics, and fragile diplomacy. Hannibal relied on alliances with local groups to support his army. Major cities like Capua and Tarentum defected to his side, hoping to break Rome's grip. But these alliances were built on a precarious foundation of fear and opportunism. Logistics were Hannibal's silent enemy. Without a reliable supply line from Carthage, he had to take resources from the very allies he claimed to be liberating. This created ongoing challenges and deep-seated resentment. As the years passed, the alliances began to crumble. Rome refused to surrender, and Hannibal found himself trapped in a hostile land, defending a shrinking territory while his reinforcements were systematically cut off. Over time, Rome performed a remarkable evolution. They adapted to Hannibal's genius. After the trauma of Cannae, Roman leaders realized that to defeat the Carthaginian, they first had to stop fighting him. This was the shift to the Fabian strategy. Instead of direct battles, the delayer focused on weakening Hannibal through indirect methods. shadowing his army, destroying his foraging parties, and using a scorched earth policy. Historians refer to this as a fundamental shift in Roman military doctrine. Rome used its vast manpower to apply a slow, crushing pressure that Hannibal's mercenary armies simply could not sustain over time. But Rome didn't just hide, they studied. A new generation of generals, led by Scipio Africanus, began to adopt Hannibal's own tactics, turning his tactical brilliance against him on the road to Zama. The war had become a test of resilience. Rome's adaptation would ultimately win the conflict, but the 15-year shadow of Hannibal had forever changed the Roman Republic into a professional military machine. In 202 BCE, the two greatest military minds of the age met at Zama. Hannibal Barca faced Publius Cornelius Scipio, a Roman who had spent years studying Hannibal's own genius to destroy him. Hannibal launched his largest elephant charge ever, intending to shatter the Roman lines. But Scipio was ready, using acoustic warfare and tactical corridors to turn the giants against their own masters. The battle was a masterclass in adaptation. With the elephants neutralized and the Numidian cavalry switching sides, Hannibal's veterans were eventually encircled. The legend of invincibility was broken. The defeat at Zama forced Carthage to accept a crushing peace. They lost their empire, their fleet, and their sovereignty. The Second Punic War was over, and Rome was now the master of the West. But Hannibal's story did not end on the battlefield. In 196 BCE, he was elected suffete, the chief magistrate of Carthage, embarking on a radical political career to save his city from bankruptcy. Applying military discipline to civil governance, Hannibal rooted out corruption and recovered stolen funds. His reforms were so effective that Carthage recovered its wealth with shocking speed. His success made him dangerous enemies. Threatened by Roman pressure and internal rivals, Hannibal was forced to flee his home under the cover of night, beginning a life of exile in the Hellenistic East. Hannibal became a strategic advisor to the Seleucid king Antiochus the Great, still urging a final strike against Rome. But the world had changed, and the Roman pursuit was relentless. In 183 BCE, cornered in Bithynia, Hannibal took his own life. His final words mocked the Romans who had feared him for decades. The lightning of Carthage was gone, but his legend remains eternal. The lightning of Carthage was gone, but his legend remains eternal. After the defeat at Zama, Hannibal's story didn't end. His exile took him across the ancient world. He traveled through several regions, seeking refuge and allies while avoiding Roman capture. His travels took him from the shores of Crete to the rugged mountains of Armenia. Historical sources suggest he didn't just hide, he advised rulers on military strategy. His reputation as a brilliant strategist continued to precede him even long after his defeat. He famously advised King Antiochus III of the Seleucid Empire during his war with Rome. Even in exile, he led fleets and planned defenses, proving his mind was still as sharp as ever. The Romans never stopped fearing him, knowing that Hannibal anywhere was a threat to their power. His final years were spent in Bithynia under the protection of King Prusias I. Hannibal's life came to an end around 183 BCE in the village of Libissa. The Romans finally caught up to him, demanding that the Bithynians hand over their famous guest. The exact details of his final hours vary significantly between different historical sources. Some accounts suggest he chose to avoid capture by his enemies by taking a hidden poison. He is said to have remarked that it was time to end the Romans' long anxiety. The mystery of his final words and the precise location of his tomb remains to this day. Historians continue to debate the exact circumstances and the motives of those involved. Thus ended the life of one of history's greatest military minds away from his home. Hannibal Barca, the man who nearly brought Rome to its knees, died a strategist to the end. Generations of military leaders, from Scipio to Napoleon, would later study his tactics, ensuring Hannibal's genius remained alive in the annals of warfare. The boy who swore an oath against Rome died an old man in a foreign land, but his name remains synonymous with strategic brilliance. Hannibal Barca. To the ancient Romans, he was the ultimate nightmare, a commander whose name alone could silence the Senate and spread panic through the streets. For nearly 2 decades, he turned the Italian peninsula into his personal chessboard, challenging the mightiest empire of his time with unprecedented boldness. Born into a family of legendary warriors, he was raised with a single burning purpose: to restore the glory of Carthage and humble the Roman Republic. Fact 13. Hannibal is widely regarded as one of the greatest military commanders in all of history, a titan of tactical genius. His strategies, particularly the double envelopment at Cannae, are still meticulously taught in military academies across the globe today. Generals throughout the centuries, from Napoleon to modern field commanders, have looked to Hannibal for timeless tactical inspiration and lessons. He was a master of psychology, often predicting Roman moves by understanding the individual temperaments and fears of their leading generals. But his brilliance wasn't just limited to the heat of battle. It was found in the sheer logistical audacity of his world-changing campaigns. Fact 14. His campaign against Rome highlighted the vital importance of strategy, extreme mobility, and rapid adaptation. By crossing the Alps in the dead of winter, he achieved the impossible, bringing the war directly to the Roman heartland when they least expected it. He maintained a formidable, undefeated army on Italian soil for 16 years, successfully living off the land while masterfully evading capture. Rome was eventually forced to adopt a desperate policy of attrition, refusing to face him in open battle for fear of total and final destruction. His ability to manage a diverse mercenary army of Greeks, Gauls, and Spaniards without a single mutiny is a testament to his logistical mastery. What truly set him apart from his peers was his leadership. He didn't just command from the rear. He inspired a loyalty that defied all logic. He shared every hardship with his men, from the freezing mountain passes of the north to the scorching heat of the southern plains. Fact 15. Today, the legacy of Hannibal Barca remains one of the most complex and deeply analyzed subjects in military history. To some, he is the ultimate underdog, a tragic genius who came inches away from changing the entire course of Western civilization. His story has inspired countless works of art, literature, and cinema, cementing his status as a timeless cultural and historical icon. Others focus on the tragic end, the final defeat at Zama, and the eventual total destruction of his beloved city, Carthage. His life serves as a profound meditation on the nature of ambition, the terrible cost of war, and the power of a single, brilliant mind. We continue to study him today, not just for his victories, but for the enduring lessons he provides in resilience and the art of adaptation. Hannibal Barca, a master of strategy, a leader of men, and a legend who continues to command our attention thousands of years later. Thank you for exploring the mind of history's greatest commander with us. The story of Hannibal Barca never truly ends.